Hello, welcome to Wolf podcast. Today's topic is Are you a toxic marketer? And this toxic, when I say toxic, it does not mean this in the chemical sense, it means in the what right now people refer to in the relationship sense that someone who is not pleasant to be around and does a lot of bad manipulative things and as a bad person basically and a lot of mainstream it has kind of become the things with the celebrities that what they do is think it is justified because it's kind of like being a bad boy and those kind of things that someone who has engages in those narcissistic behaviors and basically this the theory of the bad guys. It's just that kind of narcissistic bad guys and people, some portion of the population, some not portion as in some minute percentage of the population, they've realized that maybe being a bad person kind of gets the attention of who they want and those kind of things, a bad attention, or might work on some kind of woman. So not to say bad, but this kind of mainstream right now, they say that it's a good thing, but in the long term I don't think someone would want to be with a toxic person for a long time. And all this looks good on the memes and maybe those Twitter and makes for good jokes with your buddies and those kind of things, but in the long term I think it is a bad and behavior in the sense that it is not even good for you, that even if you engage into this, it has a dark side that is not helpful to you in the long term. So maybe you might being this kind of a toxic narcissistic and those kind of person, you miss might engage and attract certain kind of people, but in the long term itself it is not good for you. So it is closely related. That is why I'm talking about it. In marketing, how it works is say there are two ways to persuade any customer. So one is you can influence them to move towards something, or you can influence them to move away from something. So suppose you come to me to buy a gym membership, and maybe you're also a little on the bulky side. You're not worked out in a while, and come to me that you want to join the gym, and I'm here at maybe the reception. This, and I'm here. You're sitting in front of me, I'm trying to sell you a gym membership. So, and I've also sold gym memberships, so I know what the experience is like for 4 months. So, here's what happens. There are two ways to persuade any person in that scenario. One is you can influence them or the good things that can happen once they join. Maybe they could look, feel better, look better, and healthier, and moving them towards the ideal image that they have, and those kind of things. The other thing is to paint a picture that is to move them away from, I could say those kind of things, that I could shame them, guilt them, or maybe make them afraid of all the bad health things that might happen if they don't start right now, or how bad it might be for those, maybe their social life and those kind of things, or maybe uh, the societal wise, or maybe I could guilt them of so that they spend money here instead of maybe they might be spending money elsewhere. And there are two ways to approach any situation, and how you use it is up to you. So I didn't like using the second one. I think over time I knew that maybe telling people those kind of bad things, that making them afraid, and those kind of you, of course, you sell whole lot of gym memberships more by doing this, and you become better if it's a copy and those kind of things. Of course, fear is a good persuader in those kind of things, but it also depends on what situation you're using. If you're using it for small situations, in the sense you're using where it is not that required and you're using just for your benefit, this is called this falls under what I was talking about before regarding the toxic trait, in the sense that it becomes negative, and it the relationship overall changes. It's very different if you've convinced someone to be a better version of themselves and do things because they want to, and not shaming them and those kind of things. Over the long term, it has a very different behavior. And what happens is, some people kind of, maybe they'll avoid you, resent you. They might think that if I talk to them, that I'll go through the same bad experiences, and a lot of what might they might doing would be doing in a coming from a sense of fear or guilt and those kind of things. So that is why, that is how the if that is how you, if you begin the relationship, that is how it gives the shape to your entire relationship with your customers. So why am I going out on this long rant about this? So here's how it matters. Being toxic is a lot of people think this is kind of bad behavior, and just talking right now here about the marketing stuff. They know, copywriters, they know that if you use fear as a persuasion tactic, that'll persuade them more, and the insecure people, they might use it a lot because maybe that makes them feel better about themselves, or they like having those kind of control over people. But there are also two kinds of people in how they buy something. And I was talking about before, someone who moves away from something, and someone who moves towards something. A lot of successful people, or maybe uh, people who are have the right mindset, or maybe a healthy mindset, or they have sound self-help or self-improvement background. A lot of times they'll be motivated to move towards something. If you use that kind of language of moving away from them, they'll immediately tune you out. They'll realize what is happening, and they will immediately put you in that negative characteristics of those kind of people who use this kind of tactics to persuade this. So if you just ignore this moving towards something tactic, you'll just wipe off those kind of that who might be good prospects over the long run. And if you're writing copy, if you're writing to a large base, putting both the things in the copy is sometimes that is advisable by those copywriters. And but what happens is, because out of greed or maybe those egos problems, a lot of people just focus on the fear and those kind of things. And in selling, if you're using those kind of things in the starting, you might have some success, but maintaining the relationships, the continuity, the maybe the renewals, and over the long time relationship with your customers might go a lot of sour if you those kind of techniques if you're using. And the one thing translates to another. If you're using toxic traits or techniques in one of your selling techniques, they might also automatically it's not it does not become conscious at that point. You might be doing other toxic things also. And a lot of people immediately recognize those kind of traits, because a lot of those maybe older people, they realize that this kind of bad thing has happened before with me, and they see that as a sign. And if you use like I was talking about in my previous podcast, if you use manipulation with someone over time, people do realize you cannot manipulate someone against their will. And if they realize that they have been manipulated into doing something, they are going to resent you for it. So those kind of tactics only use when it is in the right context. And if there's nothing else left, and nothing else left is also bad, it might be very vague to interpret, so I'll not use that. But use it wisely. And that's all. The overall relationship, if you sell someone this kind of membership once using those fear tactics, suppose once, the other time when you meet them, they might not be very happy to see you, or the feelings that they feel might not be very positive. And you can use this one time. Is it possible for you to use that again and again and again and again? It is not easy. If you're doing renewals, or having a longer relationship over time and upselling, you realize that this kind of toxic things are just techniques, and it's not a good strategy over for the longer term. If you're trying to maybe build a business, build a career in your sales, or maybe even for doing something for a longer time period. So that's all. And overall, I just wanted to stress as a summary that using these kind of techniques is good, but it also matters is how why it is used for, and your ethics in the longer term. And that is what is the difference between a con man and a salesman. That that as a con man you not be there for the longer term, so that is why you might be using this. And if you're looking for someone, or if you are someone who is there for the longer term, and if you're someone who is not insecure and doesn't need those kind of tactics to feel better about themselves, or just get a small moment of power at the expense of someone, you might stay away from becoming a toxic marketer and using those kind of techniques. And they're all out there, so I cannot directly say. If someone wants to do that, they'll somehow figure it out. But the choice is up to you on the long term, and the choices you make today will define your future, how all other relationships and all other aspects of your life. So don't use this kind of things. Enjoy the memes, enjoy all this kind of jokes and things, but when it comes down to actually using the techniques, whether with the people in your life, or maybe customers, don't become like a toxic marketer. And be secure with the yourself that even without using those kind of things, you will be able to get the sale or get your point across. So have that confidence. That's all. Thank you for listening to SC Wolf podcast. This is Harwin signing out.